Oh my god, I swear this should be the fucking worst. How hard is it to connect to the goddamn app, bitch? What up, though? Let's see.
That's a Chromebook with built-in virus protection, so you can click with confidence. With no more of this, and a lot more peace of mind. Move along, viruses. Switch to built-in virus protection. Switch to Chromebook.
Come right out and say it. Natural infection with COVID works to produce immunity against future severe disease and future infection at a rate that's probably equal to or better than vaccination. There, I said it. Just stop denying that actual infection, like almost every other disease that we have vaccines for, getting infected naturally, which, by the way, I hate that word because it feels like organic to me, getting infected in the wild, right, will generate immunity. If it didn't, the vaccine
Natural immunity is a thing. Natural immunity is a real thing. Why? Why won't it play this thing? Oh my god, yo. Okay. I get it. That's how I wanna be. Motherfucker goddamn wanna play some legit info shit, but I swear yo, YouTube be fucking around. Don't be want y'all to hear the truth. I try to get y'all art and education. They don't be wanting the education part to filter through. You're teaching them too much, Travis. You're teaching them too much.
So
Do you like Candace Owens, or do you absolutely detest her? Do you like me, or do you absolutely loathe me? Wherever you stand on two polarising figures, here we are in conversation. Now, obviously, we talk about politics.
I don't hate Candace Owens, but she's not like my favorite person. Once again, you gotta listen to everybody. Martin, what up? You gotta listen to everybody. Listen to all sides, and people have hard facts, and then people have hard opinions. And I can agree with somebody's opinions, or I can disagree with somebody's opinions, but facts are facts. And Candace Owens, she knows she's not a stupid person. She's a very smart individual. I just don't agree with a lot of her opinions. Um, I listen to more Russell Brand than Candace Owens, and I can say that I like Russell Brand. Is he one of my favorite people? Not really. But do I agree with him all the time? No, cause he like touches on like a lot of spirituality and inner beings and cosmo and shit like. And I'm not convinced about like what they call it, metaphysics. Maybe I just need to study more metaphysics. But yeah, Candace Owens is a unique individual. So let's hear Russell Brand in a conversation with Candace Owens.
Particularly, I wanted to press Candace Owens on the idea that most people that live in systems of elitism and privilege are in those positions because of advantages that have been endowed upon them. Candace Owens, more of an individualist than I am, you might imagine, strongly contests my perspective. Hopefully, we remain respectful.
But this is an old fact right here that most wealthy people are born into wealth, or at least have some significant head start towards building wealth. Very, 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 very few people in this world start out poor and become wealthy. Say it again. Say it again, bro. You know what I'm saying? But very, very, very few people obtain wealth starting out in poverty. And we know all the black people because it's a handful of them. Oprah Winfrey is wealthy. Um, Jay-Z has acquired wealth. Now you can become rich. A lot of people can become rich. You can have like, you know, a $250,000 in the bank, or even $1 million in the bank, and be rich. But that's not wealth. Wealth is like becoming a billionaire. You know, generational wealth where off of all your assets and investments, if you pass away now and nothing else accumulates from there, you have enough wealth for generations. Your grandkids probably can just live off the money you have if they're smart. You know, that's generational wealth. $1 million, shit, your kids can fuck that shit up in their lifetime, you know what I'm saying? And then their kids won't have nothing. So there's a big difference between rich and wealthy. And once again, most people who have wealth are born into wealth. It's generational wealth that's passed down to them. Like the Trump family or the fucking De Beers or the Morgans or whoever. These motherfuckers are wealthy. It's a difference. Jay-Z blue. You know what I'm saying? You got that Jay-Z blue. Snoop Dogg got a color. Snoop Dogg got dog food brown. Russell Simmons owns the word P-H-A-T, fat. Russell Simmons owns that shit. Fat Farm. Yeah, I own my own blue. I got my own shade of blue. I'm saying nobody can't use this but me without my permission. That says far and few that makes it to wealth. Well, you can turn down the NFL. You wealthy. Like NFL, I don't need your money.
and light and kind with one another while vehemently disagreeing. I'm going to have further conversations with Candace Owens, so look out for those. This conversation took place on my podcast, Under the Skin, available on Luminary. You can subscribe to it. There's a link in the description. Let me know what you think about this conversation in the comments below.
Look, I agree, but do you not think this individualistic culture is in itself destroying the principles at a spiritual, human level of community? Do you not think when people see this economic inequality, this disparity, I'm not talking about hating your little rich friend Lola Bell or whoever it was, you went round to see her nanny and were infuriated by it, but thought, oh, well, maybe one day I'll have my own nanny. Do you not think that economic inequality creates in a human being a sense of injustice, of unfairness? Because people, do you know what, Candice? 90% of people that are rich, do you know why they're rich? They was born rich.
Okay, I can tell you something. I think that economic disparity creates that feeling, but a fun...
And there's a difference. And Oprah is wealthy. But Bill Gates is more wealthy than Oprah. And fucking Bezos is more wealthy than Gates. Bezos and Musk are more wealthy than Gates. But these people didn't start from poverty. You know what I'm saying? Wait, Gates from California or somewhere? His parents had pretty decent careers and livelihoods, and they owned a home, they owned property, and you know they were able to afford a way for him to go to college. He dropped out, but you know he wasn't poor. You know, he had leisure time, vacation time. He had time to think of brilliant ideas and a support group to encourage him to think about brilliant ideas. Where poverty, you fucking struggling for your next fucking meal, nigga, trying to figure out how you gonna get soap to wash and shit and pay your bills. And when you in poverty, your whole agenda is different. You know what I'm saying? When you come up in upper middle class America, you got a little bit less stress, a little bit less shit to worry about. Therefore, you can focus your attention and imagination on other topics and issues. That's what J. Cole said on that one track, talking about, oh, y'all think I'm in the Illuminati? What the fuck they want with me? Nigga, they'll do fine. They doing fine without me. The Illuminati don't need no niggas like me. Yeah. Motherfucker, fuck that, man. I'm gonna build a personal computer. A what? A PC, nigga. I think I can make one of these shits. And him and his homies did that shit in the fucking garage at his house. Sat in the garage and figured out how to do that shit, yo. That shit crazy. It's gonna be my next little mural right here. It ain't nothing big, but so this is the office where I work at, and they want our name, our logo on the side of the building right here, because there is no markings. All on other sides of the building, there is markings with the name saying, "Hey, this is our building. This is Outreach." But on this side, there is nothing. And so I'm gonna put this on there. It's like I said, just some simple lettering and shit. But oh. This is the same side of the building, just a little bit further down. Alright, so yeah, so this is, the parking lot is like right here. And you can go down this little hill. And it's just, it goes down to the WIC office. And they want something here that says WIC. So this side of the building can have some type of markings on it. And so like tomorrow I'll do like I did here and just do a mock-up of a logo there so they can see it, and if they approve it, I'll order the paints. Luckily, we have a contract with no. No, you can't put that on my mural. What the hell? But luckily, there's a paint store like literally 2 blocks away. We already got our contract and everything in there because since we're a non-profit, we don't pay taxes. So I'll just go over there, like ride 2 blocks, grab some paint, come back, fucking whip that shit up. I already told them too, yo. Doing shit like this, man, y'all gotta pay me different. For shit like that, I need $37 an hour. I'm just saying, point blank, period, man. You know what I'm saying? I need more money. If y'all got me outside doing murals, and man, that's too much. Y'all can't pay me my regular hourly wages, yo. I need $37 an hour. And they was like, oh, okay. I'm like, yes. How long you think it's gonna take? Like 12 hours, nigga. 2 days. At least a couple days. I'm looking at maybe, I don't know, like 6 hours per mural. That's how I'm trying to do the math. Like, if I do get out there and hump it and just outline it and brush it in, like that shit shouldn't take me long at all. It's just letters. And so, yeah, I got somebody who say he'll paint for food, man. You ain't even gotta give him like real money. Some sandwiches, a couple of hoagies, some donut sticks. He say he'll do it. I done said that before on my Facebook. Yo, we'll paint for food, nigga. What you got? I'm hungry. I need something to eat. Alright, so I think I want to play around with these clouds a little bit. Alright. Let's move this out the way so it don't fall and knock all kind of shit around. That was an omen. For what, man? Nigga. The omen, nigga. What, that mean it's time for me to start painting? That's the sign, nigga. You see that? The universe telling you to start humping, nigga.
Until understanding in economics can
Do
help
you know
conquer
that most people that are rich are born rich? It's not like there's a tiny minority of people that are like you that come from a poor background. And
As this conversation took place on my podcast, Under the Skin, available on Luminary, you can subscribe to it. There's a link in the description. Let me know what you think about this conversation in the comments below.
I agree, but do you not think this individualistic culture is in itself destroying the principles at a spiritual, human level of community? Do you not think when people see this economic inequality, this disparity. I'm not talking about hating your little rich friend Lola Bell or whoever it was you went round to see her nanny and were infuriated by it, but thought, oh well, maybe one day I'll have my own nanny. Do you not think that economic inequality creates in a human being a sense of injustice, of unfairness? Because people, do you know what, Candice? That if 90% of people are rich, do you know why they're rich? They was born rich.
Okay, I can tell you something. I think that economic disparity creates that feeling, but a fundamental understanding in economics can
Do
help
you know that
conquer
the most people that are rich are born rich? It's not like there's a tiny minority of people that are like you that come from a poor background and manage to overcome it. And this is what's a problem I've noticed with a lot of great people, is they sort of believe that their greatness is something that can be replicated, and I don't think it can.
I see. So I believe in the individual. You don't. That's our fundamental differences.
That the primary goal of the individual should be to serve the community.
I do not believe that the primary goal of
what do you think the primary goal of the individual should be?
I think that once an individual feels that they have served, so you're discounting the human spirit.
I'm not discounting it. I'm saying that's all there is.
Let me ask you. No, there's not.
I ain't gonna lie, yo. I barely got anything, yo. You know what I'm saying? I'm borderline poverty, no lie. But I still feel lucky to be like where I'm at, because like I don't know, I just know like there's obstacles, yo, and there's hindrances, and shit don't fucking go right all the fucking time, and it's built into the system to be that way. For me to be even where I'm at now, like is to me amazing. No lie, yo, because like I try so hard to maintain, like, because at the slightest notion of shit, you can lose everything. You know what I'm saying? And everybody doesn't have the same opportunities to even achieve or acquire the little bit of shit that I got. And so for her to be like, oh, anybody can do it, it's like, really? I mean, yeah, we all have the mental agility, and now in a digital age, we can damn near educate ourselves as long as you have a... Oh my God, I'm wasting all kind of shit over here. Y'all can't even see. I'm happy. Bam. As long as you can fucking read, yo. Yo. If you can read, my nigga, you can teach yourself, bro. And there's so many different avenues to acquire information and knowledge nowadays. So I see like the potential and the opportunities for any and everybody, especially living here in America. Home of the brave, land of the free, land of opportunity, the American dream. You know, but that shit, like, for some people, that shit is super hard till almost impossible to acquire. Super hard, or almost impossible. And that's why there's very, very few of these elitists. And that's why they're the 1%, because only 1% of the population can even ascend to those heights of wealth and decadence. But for the average person, especially if you're of the lower castes, I like saying this now. I've understood it for a minute, but really understand it more. And so if you're of the lower caste, it's going to be extremely hard for you to excel in this society. And if you do excel, you've had some major luck, a lot of hard work and luck to place you where you're at. And then you can only reach a certain level if you're allowed to. There's gatekeepers for everything. And if they don't want you in the club, you're not going to get in the club. But they have to let some people in the club for the illusion of, hey, it's possible. All you have to do is try harder. It's like, really? If I try harder, can I be in the club? Sure. But somehow they always keep moving the goal line, the goalpost. They always keep moving that shit further and further away. You can't never really catch up with that shit. So I certainly agree with Russell Brand more on a lot of these issues, especially when it comes to the wealthy. Who is stopping this? For one, it's a mental condition. It's a cultural mental impediment that has been just instilled in the black community for so long that you can either be an entertainer or athlete, and it's the weirdest thing, and that's why some of our most wealthiest individuals from the African American community, once again, notably Oprah Winfrey, who is a entertainer, or Jay-Z, who is a entertainer, or Floyd Mayweather, who is a athlete. And it's so hard for us to name like scientists, engineers, doctors, and corporate business owners. The guy who owned Lowe's. Who else? What's the black guy who was trying to buy the TV station? I forgot that dude's name. I think Bezos just gave that nigga donations, or somebody gave him some fucking money. Who else? I don't know. I done smoked that whole dude, man. I'm foggy right now, I ain't gonna lie. But there is like not very many wealthy black individuals, especially fundamental black Americans, who came from poverty and obtained wealth outside of sports and entertainment. And so there's this ingrained idea is that that's one of the most successful ways out of poverty within the black community. And so once we can get over that number one, that's a major hurdle. And let me try to find that old painting because I sold that shit. I don't know, it's like my original art that I sold, I kind of want that shit back. I want all my shit back. The dream is free, but the hustle is sold separate. You can dream of success all you want, but if you don't actually put in the work, you're not doing nothing. The dream is free, but the hustle is sold separate. You got to work towards your aspirations, whatever you aspire to be. If you don't put time into that shit, then you're never gonna accomplish anything. But then once again, every major institution has gatekeepers. Where here in America, white is right, and you just have easier time maneuvering in and about society just from the color of your skin or your surname. And these circles of favoritism aren't going anywhere anytime soon. And when someone tries, once again, when someone tries to get into the club, whatever club it is, you know what I'm saying, you better meet the criteria. Like that's why they denied Cosby ownership of a major network. That's why in the beginning they were denying Jay-Z and some other individuals, I think Puff too, like complete ownership of professional athletic teams. Like, whoa. Y'all niggas want to do what? You want to own a basketball team? Nah, nigga. You can get a percentage of, you know what I'm saying, so we don't look too racist, but y'all not owning no team, my nigga. There's clubs, man. Gatekeepers. Not saying motherfuckers can't become rich. But if you want to reach certain levels of wealth, bruh, they gotta allow you to enter their clubs. And that's why it's generational wealth, because the families just try to keep doing the same thing. Like, my family own this shit. We own this shit for the last 172 years, and this is our shit. Or whatever it may be. And we do business with these people, and they family's been doing business, you know, for the last 90 years, and we not changing that shit. We don't need no new people. We're going to keep passing around this generational wealth. And then when shit like this pandemic that recently happened, that shut down the entire globe, major corporations bought up a lot of shit to secure their stake even deeper. While people like yourself who bust their ass they whole fucking life, blood, sweat, and tears, trying to build something for their families because they don't just want to dream about this shit. That shit gets snatched away from their ass in a fucking blink of an eye. These motherfuckers got some slow jams on outside. What the hell?
In a humanity, think of animals in the wild. You don't have to go to humanity. We can just think about animals in the wild. What is our human instinct, okay? Are you going to make sure that everyone on this block is fed before you feed yourself? Do you go around and say, hey, have you had breakfast this morning? Listen. Hey, have you had breakfast this morning? Hey, or are you going to make sure you're eating? And if you have an excess, of course you're going to do the human condition, and our incentives are going to be to want to help people.
Mental. Excess. The richest 15 people on the planet have got as much cumulative wealth as the poorest 5 billion.
But
That's an excess.
No.
That's an excess.
Okay. Excuse me. First and foremost, you're talking about literally 0.00001% of the world is what you're talking about. Okay,
Let's get them.
And what are they preaching? What do they want? Socialism, so that nobody else has the opportunity to become what they've become. They're the ones that are pushing
socialism.
Yes,
That's not real socialism.
Are you kidding? George Soros doesn't want socialist policies. Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world, doesn't want socialist policies. They want to make sure that no one else has the opportunity to get to where they got.
We need to discuss our language, me and you, because
We do.
Here's what my socialism looks like. Take Jeff Bezos' wealth from him, except for a reasonable stipend for him to live on. Something like, he can have 10 million a year or something. Tax Amazon to the ground.
So the rich people pay for 85% of all of the taxes. You think they should pay for even more?
Do you think
That's fact. That's fact. Yes.
Don't look at me.
I'm telling you, that's a fact.
Face.
The top 10% pay for 85% of all the taxes. When people say they're going to raise their taxes more, I'm just like, how much more? Should we just say just pay for all the taxes?
I say this, that there is no, when you're about to use an example from the natural world, and then
I'm talking about America, by the way. I forgot
you?
that I'm in. No, I was gonna say the instinct when you're in the natural world is that you feed your family first. You're not the idea that socialism tries to create goes against.
We are no longer in the natural world, are we? We're in a world of sort of accumulation and excess, and I don't think it's even working. I wonder about sort of look, I want, because you could say, where do you draw the line? Because look at me, I've got money now, I'm not poor anymore, and I'm not going, right, I'll just take everything that's, the thing that I do agree with when I see like sort of right-wing commentators talk, like they talk about people that are, in inverted commas, from the left, and they go, well, why don't you put some refugees in your house? Why don't you give up your money? And the reason is because people are selfish, and in all of us, there is a kind of battle between, like some of my impulses, Candice, are, I just want pleasure and fun, and I don't care about anything except myself. That's in me. Mm-hmm. That's in me, and it's strong. But I personally think I don't feel good when I live that way. There are consequences for me, and there are consequences for others. So I kind of want to live within systems that encourage collective and communal values. But instead of
we're talking about theft.
No, we're not talking about
demanding that people give up their stuff is theft. But it sounds pretty when you say encourage incentives. No, when the government comes and demands that I give to someone else, that's theft.
You keep translating what I'm saying into. No, you're not helping me.
He's talking about theft.
You're translating what I'm saying into rhetoric that you can argue with, creating straw men of my words as we go, so you can kick them over.
Is theft.
No, that's. I'm not saying that. I'm not espousing the values of big government. I'm not saying that there's any political party that currently exists that in any way represents my views. I'm just asking if in politics, both personally and collectively, there's room for a little more compassion and love. And whilst I agree with your that there is something easy to fetishize about individual achievements in your own case or wherever we see greatness, we can't take that example of the ability of the individual to overcome adversity to condemn people that haven't been able to. Like, where is there a role then for compassion and kindness? I'm not saying let's get a big government and take away.
Not in politics. So my thing is that the conversation should be completely separate. Americans give $500 billion in charity every single year. Okay, it has been proven that when you lower the tax rate, when government stays out of our paycheck, we actually give more. That we're inclined to. If you have more money and you're able to do it, of course you want to give and you want to help. When the government is saying we're going to tax your business, if you're successful, you're going to get taxed more. What is the incentive for you to want to jump and build a business if you know that you're going to be penalized for it? You're going to be penalized for success. That's why we believe in limited government. When I say we, obviously I work for an organization, Turning Point USA.
Oh yeah, what's that all about?
It's a winning back.
Turning Point.
Turning Point USA. We're launching it in the UK, TP UK. That's what this whole trip is about. It sounds
hold on a minute. You're launching Turning Point, and like Turning Point is what? What do you want us to turn to?
It's conservative principles taught in the school system, because the kids are learning this lolly-dolly merry-go-round. The world's going to be purple, and we're all going to have lollipops in the school systems, and then possibly from your podcast. I guess I haven't watched enough episodes. It's just not. It's the truest, the economic model of letting people find success because they're willing to work hard. If you don't want to work hard, you shouldn't be rewarded. I don't believe in that. I don't believe, well, what about the person who doesn't have your drive?
Why should economic systems govern the way that we live our lives? Why is there not room for people to be different? Why is it that a person's value and worth should be distilled into
That's called the natural market. You can't make that go away.
It's not called the natural
market. Yes, it is.
Market.
You can't make that go away, no matter what. Tell me in the history of the world where there hasn't been some give and some take. You can't make that go away. There's no magic wand that you can wave that's going to make human incentives and what happens in humanity go away. It doesn't matter how rich or how poor society is. There's going to be give, there's going to be take. People are going to create natural markets. Hey, I have 3 apples, I'll give you 2 apples if you give me this. I mean, that it just happens. This is the way the world works.
Yeah, I appreciate that we have certain natural impulses to trade and to cooperate.
Well, if you're enjoying that conversation with Candice, let me know who you thought made the best points. Who do you agree with more? Who do you disagree with, for heaven's sake? If you want to listen to the rest of it, go over to Luminary and subscribe. I do podcasts like this all the time. Ben Shapiro's been on, Jordan Peterson's been on. In any event, if you enjoyed this video, have a look at this one. Very similar sort of themes and ideas. And if you want some well-being, spirituality, go.
Today I'm going to show you how to make the survival food that saved America during the Great Depression.
Do you feel ready?
I always feel ready.
You believe in God?
Do you believe in God?
God?
I believe in God.
We're laughing then, aren't we?
No.
We're laughing. I mean, like we are supported by invisible forces that are benevolent and kind.
Always.
I loved that video about your grandfather. You obviously love him. He's maybe is he still the most important male figure in your life?
Yeah, he's probably the only important male figure of my life, which is a strong statement to make, but that's about right.
Do you have good female figures in your life? Strong women?
No, I try to be that. I come from a very sort of broken, crazy family.
Like I heard that sort of 9 of your uncles have been incarcerated, so you come from a family where the crime is part of the story.
Yeah, I mean, they're not 9 of them, but 5 of the 9 of them all spent some time in prison, and that sort of trickled down. And I have cousins that have spent time in prison, and it was just a part of my story growing up. And it wasn't particularly unique. It's a weird thing to say, but in the retrospect, like that seems normal to me. Like, we're going to go see your uncle in prison. Okay, sure, that's what you do.
I think that's normal for a lot of people.
Right.
For other people,
It's not.
Extraordinary.
Yeah, which really lets you know that you can create different simulations in different pockets of society, and until you travel outside of it to have a different experience, you think it's just the norm.
When did that happen for you? When did your life transition from what was, your early determining context to, what was the thing that changed first for you, Candice?
Well, I think I was always sort of an alien child. Like my mother says all the time when I was a kid, they were just weirded out by me. Like I never cried. They always thought I could like understand them as a baby in the crib, which is really bizarre. But the earliest thing that I remember was my first play date, which was in kindergarten class. I was 5 years old, and there was a girl named Lindsay DeLeo. She was this blonde girl with blue eyes, and we became fast friends. I don't think we had reading class together, and her mother invited me over for a play date. And I went to her house, and I was just shocked that people lived in the way that she lived. She lived in the suburbs. She had a massive house. She had this Victorian concept room. She had a nanny. She had a playroom. And I just remember being shocked that this was even a part of life, because prior to, obviously, I existed within the realm of my family.
Really? That shit is just buffering like crazy. Yo, this is crazy. My fucking shit won't play again. I gotta take a bathroom break anyway. Yo, this video is it's giving me the hardest time listening to Russell Brand today, yo. Motherfucker be dropping too much knowledge. Alright. Oh man. I know that's right. When you run your own shit, fuck that.
One, two, three. Only pay for what you need. With Catalyze car insurance from Liberty Mutual. Nothing rhymes with Liberty Mutual.
Get that shit.
They say that no news is good news, and that is certainly true today. The Supreme Court was asked by abortion supporters to block a Texas pro-life law, and the court did nothing, which is the best thing it could have done, because that means that today, for the first time since 1973, there is a state in this country in which abortion is effectively illegal. This is wonderful, wonderful news. It could potentially, though don't get your hopes up, but it could potentially lead to the overturn of Roe v. Wade, in large part because of the clever way the law was written. Now, the libs are losing it. They're crying, they're screaming, they're fear-mongering, they're making really, really dumb arguments in favor of killing babies in the womb. Meanwhile, on the topic of dehumanization, prominent libs want to keep the unvaccinated out of hospitals. The American people, though, I think have had enough. If one poll is to be believed right now, most Americans even think Joe Biden should resign. I'm Michael Knowles. This is the Michael Knowles Show.
Wait a minute, Michael. So you're against pro-choice for abortion, but you're for pro-choice for vaccination. Yeah, I'm pro-choice on everything. Hey, that's your body. I can't tell nobody what to do with their damn body, man. You pregnant? You don't want the baby? There's a proven medical procedure that can terminate your pregnancy and won't cause loss of life to yourself. And you willing to do that shit? For real? Hey, that's you. You know what I'm saying? That's your choice. That's your body. Do whatever the fuck you want, yo. You want to smoke crack? Go smoke some crack, nigga. I don't give a fuck. That's your damn body. As long as you ain't fucking with nobody else, bro. You want to goddamn go down by the river and pick up little pebbles and eat them shits? Just swallow them whole? I do not care. You can go eat all the river pebbles you want, man. As long as you ain't fucking with me. I think I'm gonna need a different brush. I guess I'm an individualist in that fashion because, yo, if you ain't causing harm to me or some innocent woodland creatures or some shit, man, you know what I'm saying? Anything that's alive, if you're not causing loss of life or harm or pain or any type of suffering or anguish to anyone else other than yourself, if you want to cause yourself anguish and pain and suffering, hey, be my guest. Do whatever the fuck you want to yourself. As long as you ain't doing that shit to nobody else, man. If you like pain, you get off on that shit, yo, hey. More power to you, man. You want to pull your toenails off? Hey, what up? Whatever, man. You like motherfuckers kicking in your balls and shit? Hey, that's you. But you know what I'm saying? That's my view on pro-choice. And I understand the abortion argument. Well, the baby doesn't have a choice in the argument. And I get that. It's like if you catch that shit early enough, and everybody want to debate when is it a human and this and that, and I don't know, man. Like I said, to each their own. And I just stay out the damn. That's why I say pro-choice for abortion, because I ain't no fucking woman, yo. I ain't gonna tell a whole nother different type of being. Like, the sexes are extremely different, yo. So I'm gonna tell a fucking woman what to do with her body. Oh, you can't. You gotta have this baby. Whatever, yo.
Welcome back to the show. My favorite comment yesterday from Jacqueline Twerd, who said, classrooms shouldn't be like a teacher's home where they can hang whatever ridiculous stuff, I'll clean it up, whatever ridiculous stuff they feel like. Whatever happened to the times tables and the alphabet? Thank you. Yes, these teachers who are hanging the Pride Progress flag or the Antifa flag even, they seem to think that the classroom is just their fiefdom in which they can do whatever they want. And in part, this is because of a misguided understanding of what is called academic freedom, that now even the right defends. The left kind of pushed it, but even the right defends it. And it's just completely preposterous. The third grade classroom is not a free marketplace of ideas, and it never has been, and it should not be, and it never will be. It's a place to teach kids basics. So I absolutely agree with your point. I wish not only the left, but conservatives would wake up. Wish they could hear the truth. And if you want to hear the truth, if you want to hear just good music, I'd recommend checking out your Raycons. I love Raycons. They are a better product than some of the other brands on the market. All right, I'm gonna try to be nice about it, but you know, look, Raycons, they don't have the little stems sticking out so you don't look like a bug. They don't.
Not Raycons. Ain't that fucking Ray J? Brandy's brother? Yo, this motherfucker doing the advertisement for motherfucking Ray J. Check that shit out. Raycons.
Only come in one color. They come in a lot of cool, stylish colors. Great fit of their gel tips for your comfort. They sound better. They work better. They've got a 32-hour battery life. I love my Raycons, okay? And especially when my sweet little baby starts crying. You know, whether I'm in the house, maybe we're on a plane or in the car, know that I can just pop in my Raycons and have a nice little bit of peace and quiet. They're really great. They start at half the price of other premium audio brands, but they sound just as good. They actually sound better if you ask me. Raycons comes with a 45-day happiness guarantee, so you really can't lose. Give them a try. You will see what I mean. Great way to listen to really good audiobooks like Speechless. Create your own soundtrack with Raycon. Right now, my listeners can get 15% off their Raycon order at buyraycon.com/Knowles. That's buyraycon.com/Knowles. Save 15% on Raycons. You're going to love them. Tell me how much you love them. Buyraycon.com/Knowles. This Texas law is magnificent. So the court decision was 5-4 because, of course, Chief Justice John Roberts sided with the libs. And the decision was not over the constitutionality of the law. The decision was whether or not to grant abortionists in Texas a special emergency halting of the new pro-life law. So thankfully, the five at least sort of conservative justices, Thomas certainly conservative, Alito certainly conservative, Gorsuch a little squishier, Kavanaugh a lot squishier, and Amy Barrett a lot squishier, but all five of them, to their great credit, voted in favor of allowing the Texas law to go into effect. This is a very, very important decision. And then you had the three libs, really the four libs, because Chief Justice John Roberts was there, and he voted to stop the law. One small point on John Roberts before we get into what this law actually does. John Roberts' whole purpose, I believe, is that he wants to maintain the institutional credibility of the court, because he's the Chief Justice, so he has a responsibility not just to the decisions, but also to the institution itself. And so I think what John Roberts is trying to do here is seem that he's above politics, because he will often vote with the liberals. Ironically, though, what the effect of his machinations have been is to make the court seem much, much more party political, to make the court seem much less principled. He has ironically destroyed the institutional credibility of the court because he's very clearly just picking his side based on the poll numbers, based on the politics, based on what he thinks will be able to placate the people, rather than upholding some kind of constitutional principle.
That feeling, it's exactly what I miss. Fighting. The Golden Boy, going out there and just do or die. No pain, no glory. I'm facing a monster, a striker. We both understand what it's like to be warriors inside the ring. This is a real fight. I can't wait.
But the principle upheld, at least in this decision. The Texas law, which was passed in May.
Are all these old boxers just trying to come out of retirement just because they see how, I don't know, trying to show out for the younger generation? Because De La Hoya been in retirement for a minute. He hasn't fought in a while. That seems kind of weird. I don't know. Is he gonna draw a crowd just because of his name? And then will it be a good fight? Like, who Tyson fought? Like, I didn't even watch that shit, yo. Like, why are all these old dudes still trying to box and shit, man?
espresso made right.
Help. Raymore and Flanagan is here to help you get your best night's sleep. Come in today and take a comfort test on a Beauty Rest Black mattress for a chance to win a $20,000 home makeover. Raymore and Flanagan is the place for your best rest ever.
Forster, and that, of course, is the Great Pyramid, which in April May 19, our tour rented the interior of the Great Pyramid for 2 hours. That's what makes our tour special. We also rented the interior of this, the second pyramid, for 2 hours. 4 o'clock, the Giza Plateau closes down, and everyone else that's there is moved out except for security. And then at 5 o'clock, to the second pyramid is opened up to us. We're allowed to explore, as I said, exclusively our group hours. Now, because we had the Giza Plateau area for ourselves, there you see the security on the camels, we were able to explore the exterior, or at least I did, in order to look at the casing stone and the internal construction in pyramid. And it's great not having a huge group of people wandering around, but having, I think it was 70 of us, having Giza Plateau to ourselves. Here you see the granite casing stone on the second pyramid, which is different from the Great Pyramid because the Great Pyramid was completely cased with Tura limestone. And there's some anomalies and things that I was able to observe because, again, we had the entire Giza Plateau to ourselves for a couple of hours. Here again, you can see some sections of the casing stone. And here is our happy group with the door opened, entering inside of the second pyramid. The internal arrangement in terms of hallways, etc., of the second pyramid are completely different from the Great Pyramid, and the same can be said for the third pyramid as well. Look at the joy on their faces. While they were inside, I was inspecting, as I said, exterior. Here you can see 2 pieces of the granite casing stone still in place. The strange erosion patterns, but look how tightly fitting the casing stone originally was. Attempts were made to remove all of the casing stone, but luckily in that example, those 2 are still tightly fitting together. Here you can see an attempt to break up the casing stone into smaller pieces. Again, of course, is the Great Pyramid. And now I'm going to veer to the left and inspect the wall because the area around the second pyramid had to be flattened before the construction of the second pyramid. You can see very large blocks of limestone were removed for the construction of the second pyramid. Now we're going closer and we're going to be seeing machining marks. Typically at a 45-degree angle, as you can see, like parallel chisels. Very similar to what we also see in Baalbek in Lebanon, also Petra in Jordan. It's highly unlikely that these are hand tool marks because it would take a lot of chisels to do this. They're roughly parallel Looks like there was a series of cutters at work. And this is more of a close-up. As high quality craftsmanship as we see in Petra and Jordan, for example, but still a lot of work. And here, even closer up, in parallel chisels, it looks like, or pointed, hard metallic objects. Turning to the base of the second pyramid, see the different courses, the pieces of the casing stone lying in situ. And this is just a view to show you the incredible scale of the second pyramid. Now here I am walking along the first course. You can see that the casing stone actually doesn't fit that tightly into what we presume is the original construction, which is odd. We are inside. This is the descending passageway. As I climb up it, one of our guests is about to pass me. He's looking down. Now, a long horizontal hallway. And now going up the ramp towards the next level. You can walk perfectly upright in the second pyramid, which is different from the Great Pyramid. In terms of the Great Pyramid, the Grand Gallery, you can walk totally upright because it's about 20 feet tall to get to the ceiling. But in the case of the second pyramid, it's human height. At this point, I'll have to bend down in order to back out. Some people decide to go backwards. And then finally, this is me left, going down to another level inside the second pyramid, which you may not have known about. Walking along, going back up. The entrance, inspecting a large block of granite here on the side. Back out again. If you'd like to join us, we're going back in March of 2020. I honestly think this is one of the finest tours of Egypt offered by anyone. And it's not simply because I'm part of it, it's because it's a very high quality tour. Exclusive locations we get to visit, as well as the obvious ones like the Giza Plateau.
Plus Hulu and ESPN Plus team up.
Oh my god.
Epic stories. Tons of shows and movies. And can't miss sports. Are better together. Get the Disney bundle today.
This series is dedicated to Brother Steve Coakley.
I agree to say because they talking about the Boule, but Steve Coakley is the only person I've ever heard really break down the Black Boule. Coakley had that knowledge for your ass.
The Mysterious Society of Elite Negroes. Defining this group has evaded us all. Who are they? And what exactly is their purpose? When addressing this group, the most essential element to grasp about identity is understanding the society known as Boule is a predominantly black fraternity. But unlike most fraternities, is non-collegiate. Becoming a member of this fraternity is contingent upon several qualifications. Among the most paramount is excellence of performance in one's field. There are only 5,000 members of Sigma Pi Phi, otherwise known as the Boule. Since the inception of this fraternity in 1904, several dozen of the most well-known so-called black figures of the past century were and are members. It is considered a great honor to become an archon of the Boule. Members range from W.E.B. Du Bois to Colin Powell, and from Kwesi Mfume to Martin Luther King. Contrary to the perceived notoriety, the purpose for this group, however, is perversely sinister. The Miseducation of the Negro is more than just a book by Carter G. Woodson. It's been a philosophy of American colonialism unto this day. And an essential part of this philosophy is using quasi-classically educated Negroes as harbingers for the black masses. Carter G. Woodson being a prime example, whom has been labeled by the establishment father of African American history. Woodson obtained his PhD from Harvard in 1912, where only he and W.E.B. Du Bois were the only black men to achieve such at the time. Same point, these men would become members of the Boule. One would think by reading Carter G. Woodson's somewhat unapologetically black and African-centric writings that he would have been considered radical and controversial to his white contemporaries. But if it weren't for these so-called white contemporaries, the Carter G. Woodson name would have never seen the eyes of the public. This opposition came from black contemporaries who saw his amalgamation of American blacks with African culture as a conflation of history. As the case may be, the narrative states Carter sought funding in order to continue his endeavors into the establishment of a Negro-centered historical foundation. Inadequate of funding himself, he then turns to the preeminent perpetuators of Negro miseducation for financial backing, the Carnegie Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, and the Julius Rosenwald Foundation. These foundations were created by some of the most unscrupulous businessmen in American history, yet these foundations would fund the spurious new black intellectual movement that culminated in the Harlem Renaissance.
Hearing about Harlem and going to Harlem became exciting, new, different,
what up,
and
bro?
people went. They went to a place that others would say, you don't really want to go up there. But in fact, going up there could get you the time of your life. And going into, you also have to remember the early 20s during Prohibition, everyone wants to do just the opposite of what the law says. So of course, that's another reason to go to Harlem. Go against the grain. Women, go against the grain socially. Cut your hair, wear the short flappers dresses. Go against societal norms. Harlem was that for white America.
Julius Rosenwald Fund, for example, literally funded most of the renowned artists, musicians, authors, playwrights, and activists of the late 1920s, and many of the names associated prominently in Black American history. People like Claude McKay, Ralph Ellison, Marian Anderson, Julian Bond, W.E.B. Du Bois, Maya Angelou, and Langston Hughes were paid by the Rosenwald Foundation going all the way back to the 1920s. These black figures were being marketed to the masses by a small group of Jewish men as the leading black scholars in the country. The same Rosenwald Fund first conducted the degenerate syphilis study in 5 southern states, inspiring as a result of their initial blueprint in the Tuskegee experiments. In addition, the Julius Rosenwald Foundation is responsible for the construction of over 5,000 schools, most of these schools primarily built for Southern blacks. Why was Rosenwald so interested in helping black people? Rosenwald himself came from an immigrant family of Jewish merchants. As a young man, he learned the family trade as an apprentice in New York and began making clothes. This led to his partnership with Sears Roebuck, who allowed him to buy shares in the company after they were having financial trouble. But he revived under Rosenwald, and he became wealthy. Rosenwald, while working as a young man, developed a close friendship with Henry Goldman, a second-generation German Jew, who was best known for Goldman Sachs, a prime brokerage investment firm that his father Marcus founded in Bavaria, Germany. Rosenwald had other powerful friends as well, who would all be instrumental in helping him and people like him become the face of simulated social reform. These men would use their millions to champion the new black agenda. When tracing the money to some of the most prominent black organizations of the past, one is left with one very common denominator. This denominator is the deception behind the miseducation of the Negro, a history signed and sealed in an African slavery-connected identity delivered to you by ignorant or compromised Negroes who have been indoctrinated into a false dogmatic historical cover-up. When reading the words of Black scholars of the past, there seems to be a romanticized relationship between these authors and their supposed African heritage. W.E.B. Du Bois found the work, The Souls of Black Folk. The reference to Africa was made nearly a dozen times. In each reference, the word Africa or African is inserted into the text to draw comparison by similarity between African and Black American culture. And consistently, in each case, Du Bois provides no credible historical background into the analytical significance of his comparison, but rather vague conjecture, leading the reader into biased presuppositions. In page 196, Du Bois makes a definitive statement. Social history of the Negro did not start in America. Just this statement alone, W.E.B. Du Bois threatens the historical credibility of his entire career of works. Understanding the original American was reclassified as African and Negro in the century prior to his birth is a reflection never echoed in his work. Furthermore, the reclassification of a people and lacking in acknowledgement of heritable indigenous rights, viable treachery. If Du Bois was a true historian, then he would have developed his own legitimate historical perspective and outline concerning the history of the so-called African American. Instead, his writings are the bougie Zionist propagated social commentaries of an uppity Negro. Someone who had completed an entire database in which he had gathered census information on Southern American plantation owners and slave statistics, Du Bois never dedicated any of his writings toward the indigenous American culture that existed on the continent prior to colonialism and its connection to blacks in America. If anything, Du Bois could have been an instrument of the first American black regional beef. Instead of East versus West Coast rappers, it was Northern versus Southern Negroes. In writings that allude to the Northern Negro as progressive and the Southern Negro as a peon or pauper. His work, however, doesn't come completely without historical legitimacy, but instead narrated from the perspective of an outsider or spectator. His book, The Souls of Black Folk, on page 48, always makes quick reference to the mulatto immigrants from the West Indies who immigrated to the North, whom had demanded to be considered freemen on the basis that they would seek assimilation and amalgamation with the nation on terms with other men. One of the families implicated in his text was an ode to his own ancestry. In his own words, the Du Bois family of New Haven sought to be not as slaves and not as Negroes. To be accurate, Bois, as the name suggests, was not American or even African for that matter. Claimed African ancestry from his mother's side. His mother's Burghardt lineage wasn't black. His mother's grandfather was apparently a West African slave, but the Burghardt lineage was definitely Anglo-Dutch. On his father's side was the lineage of French Huguenots. His father Alfred had immigrated from Haiti to New Haven. Many accounts his father could have been of mixed race origin, as French Huguenots were often known to comprise of a mulatto class. But with this being said, Du Bois had no ancestral roots in America, as did the so-called Negroes whom had been inhabiting the land long before Eurasian contact. In fact, it wouldn't be until Du Bois was in college did he come face to face with the true plight of the Southern Negro. And accordingly, this was the first time in his life that identified himself as being black.
David Levering Lewis, W.E.B. Du Bois?
Yes, he always insisted on that pronunciation. He did not like the Gallic pronunciation, though in his antecedents he was partly French.
Look at this nigga's lips. Look how tight this nigga's lips are. His rectum's probably tighter.
As I say decisively, Du Bois.
Did you ever meet him?
You know, I say in the acknowledgments that I did, and I realized when, after I finished a lot of research, that it had to be about 1947 when I was standing with my father on a college campus in Ohio. My father and Du Bois were acquaintances, if not friends, and Du Bois apparently approached and asked me what I intended to do with my life. And I was then about 9 years old. I could now tell him a good part of my life was taken up answering that question by writing the first of his 2-volume biography.
Why is this nigga talking like that? He gotta be Boule.
Who was he?
W.E.B. Du Bois was a man who lived about 95 years, and so his life really spans the 20th century and its issues and its major personalities. He was born in the north, in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, a small town in the Berkshires, and educated elementary and high school there, and then attended college at Fisk University in Tennessee, and then took a second bachelor's at Harvard, and then went on to obtain the PhD in history from Harvard, the first African-American to be awarded the doctorate. And before he did that, he spent about 2 years at the University of Berlin.
University. Where is this nigga from? I gotta find out where this nigga's from. Look here, it says this nigga is from Arkansas. The Boule got them niggas on that straight Buckingham, bro.
What? Taught here and there at the University of Pennsylvania. Wrote a book called The Philadelphia Negro, which is one of the first books of urban sociology in America. And then he went on to Atlanta University, and for 10 years he superintended the really pioneering studies, the Atlanta University studies, which simply took the whole gamut of African American and Southern life. And then he retired from teaching to the activity of being editor of the NAACP's magazine, The Crisis, from 1910 to 1934. And he was, of course, also a co-founder of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and it was he who insisted that it be colored, not Negro, not African, not black, but colored, because he wanted the association indeed to have a mission and mandate which would address itself to the larger issue of darker peoples everywhere. He was always thinking a bit ahead of the administrators, bureaucrats, and colleagues for whom the immediate and pragmatic was more compelling.
Like, his lips are so tight. Talks like Dan Rather's bastard son.
Both verbally and in prose, he would espouse the position, but then a few years later he might well strike up another position, which was not, if in direct contradistinction to the previous position, more than a shade different. And so many of his allies found themselves puzzled as in his long life he took a variety of positions that were somewhat paradoxical. Underneath them all, though, was a principled consistency that racism must be combated, that human rights must be affirmed, and that economic justice was the key to the eventual accomplishment of parity and the enhancement of the great majority of the life chances of peoples.
University. He's got to be one of the most bougie niggas I've ever seen in my life. The underlying aspect of the ascension of many of these men was the conflation of the African and black identity. While many of these men were mulattoes passing as white, and even several with non-indigenous American roots. It is a matter of fact. Non-American blacks were at the forefront of black Hegelian deception in the early 20th century.
No,
as
not
the
yet.
quasi-leading voices of Black America were tokens funded by Zionist, Jewish, first and second generation immigrants. Du Bois, although American-born, was the offspring of Anglo-Dutch French immigrants. His greatest adversary, Marcus Garvey, was a Jamaican-born immigrant who proposed the idea of American blacks going back to Africa as though the entire black population of America had been a product of the slave trade, as did Du Bois. But nothing could be further from the truth. Du Bois has been proclaimed a Pan-Africanist by modern historians. This he and Garvey shared in philosophy, but their ideologies concerning the methods for black improvement were in conflict. These two men had numerous public spats. Perhaps Du Bois is best known for his contribution in the founding of the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. But Du Bois wasn't the sole founder or source of funding for the NAACP. In truth, the NAACP was a predominantly Zionist white organization from its very inception. All of its officers, with the perverse hybrid exception of Du Bois, were either white abolitionists or Jewish, and Du Bois' role was merely as a public relations figurehead with no executive authority. The organization would go on to recruit several other Jewish leaders for pivotal roles within the organization. The NAACP would even recruit funds from Jacob Schiff, a German Jewish financier for the Rothschild family, whom had ironically funded communism and the Bolshevik Revolution. One of Schiff's major contentions with the Bolsheviks was their apparent anti-Semitism. But of course, the leaders of the Bolsheviks themselves were Jews. Vladimir Lenin, Leon Trotsky, even Stalin and Karl Marx had changed their names to conceal their Jewish identity, and then posed as revolutionaries and anti-Semites before the world, funded by the propaganda machine that has now amalgamated itself into the NAACP. And this transmutation would not become more apparent than when Du Bois proclaims himself a communist. This was a direct result of his dealings with his Jewish contemporaries, who encouraged Du Bois endlessly to present anti-Semitism and racism under the same light. Although Du Bois was supposedly working for the advancement of black people, he was well insulated within the ranks of non-blacks as the face for their coercive pitches to the masses. To describe him as a Marxist would be an understatement. Even after the age of 90, Du Bois was still endorsing communism, such an un-African philosophy for a self-proclaimed Pan-Africanist. Willie found comfort around his fair-skinned counterparts, as he had done for his entire childhood, as many of the men of the Boule had been mulattoes, socially accepted as white, just as the founding members of Sigma Pi Phi, Henry Minton and Algernon B. Jackson. Passing for white was obviously a theme for the inaugural class of Sigma Pi Phi, resembling more of a mayonnaise convention than a society of strong black men. Henry McKee Minton, co-founder, was the son of a mixed-race Union colonel and slumlord, John McKee. McKee, a man who erected housing projects in Philadelphia for blacks migrating north after the Civil War. McKee became wealthy by exploiting black transplants to Philadelphia by exchanging deeds to their lands and property they owned in the South for rent vouchers in his Philadelphia housing projects. At the time of his death, John McKee was recognized as the wealthiest colored man in America, with over $4 million and over 4,000 acres of land scattered throughout different states. He only left $50 for each of his children in his will, however, while leaving the majority of his estate and wealth, over $2 million, to the Catholic Church, entrusting Archbishop Patrick John Ryan as the executor of his estate. However, the will was challenged, and as a result, his son Henry McKee Minton received $25,000, which would be just under $800,000 today. Henry, as a young man, attended the prestigious Phillips Exeter Academy boarding school in New Hampshire, whose notable graduates include some of the most influential names in 20th century American history, from Ulysses S. Grant Jr. to Mark Zuckerberg. Minton had spent a significant portion of his entire career passing for white, as did another Sigma Pi Phi founder, Algernon B. Jackson. Another mixed-race man who sported a blonde coif, an ode to his Caucasian mother, who was influential in his education at predominantly white institutions, like the University of Indiana, for which she was a member of the faculty. Jackson went on to prosper as a surgeon, becoming the first so-called black surgeon at Philadelphia Polyclinic Hospital, an exclusively white hospital, and then working as chief surgeon for Mercy Hospital in Philadelphia, where he worked for 20 plus years before taking a position at Howard. He left as hospital superintendent, a position which would be filled by his Boulay brother, Henry McKee Minton. These two men ran in the most privileged circles in Black America and sought to bind men of like qualities to an organization and to develop contacts for the improvement of their careers. Together with 4 other men, they founded the Boulay. In the beginning, Sigma Pi Phi was comprised of mostly physicians. One of these physicians, Robert Abel, was the brother of renowned architect Julian Abel. The Abel brothers were from a prominent Black Philadelphia family, whose roots lay in the establishment of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, which was the first Black Episcopal church in the United States. Although the historical narrative elaborates little on the life and times of Robert, Julian seems to have lived a more noteworthy life. Julian is an architect to some of the most venerated structures of American academia, including the Widener Library on the campus of Harvard, the Philadelphia Central Library, the Philadelphia Museum of Art, which includes the steps from the movie Rocky, the Allen Administration Building on the campus of Duke University, as well as Duke University Chapel, and most notably on the campus Cameron Indoor Stadium. The Abel family were some of the most illustrious Blacks in Philadelphia. Eugene Moneyman Henson was another Philadelphia-based physician who joined the ranks of the light-skinned assassins. Additionally, Big Eddie Throat Baby Howard, a master Masonic medicine man in his own right, had already established a practice in Philadelphia by the year 1870. Being the first Black graduate from Harvard Medical College, Howard was commissioned by the 12th Infantry of Pennsylvania, ascending to the rank of Surgeon General. To boot, Big Edwin Clarence Joseph Turpin Howard helped found Frederick Douglass Memorial Hospital in Philadelphia in 1895, the first Black hospital in the city. Likewise, as he did with Mercy Hospital, along with his other Boulay brethren.
And you say that he was only one of 3 people in Ghana that had a ZIL limousine.
Correct, yes. The Russians had had great admiration for Du Bois. He was quite useful to them. And indeed, more than that, Khrushchev and Du Bois hit it off famously in their several meetings. And so the Russian ambassador was instructed to give Du Bois that behemoth limousine, the ZIL. And so he had one, the ambassador, of course, and then Nkrumah, the president of Ghana, also.
You say that he got cables on when he died, were sent from Mao Zedong, Zhou Enlai, Nikita Khrushchev, and that in attendance was Gus Hall of the American Communist Party. Why did they like him so much, or why did they want to pay homage to him?
Well, his value to the Soviet cause was enormous. Here was the most impressive African-American intellectual, the man who was deemed widely to be the father of Pan-Africanism, the founder of the Civil Rights Movement. And now in the 50s, his politics were such that that the Soviet Union thought it appropriate to bestow upon him the Lenin Peace Prize. And then,
this nigga said Lenin Peace Prize. That's an oxymoron. This nigga killed like 1 trillion people.
58, that was the time when Paul Robeson's passport was restored and a whole raft of people were once again able to travel. He went to the Soviet Union and was treated like a head of state virtually, and then to China with the same sort of treatment. And so if the Soviet Union hoped to encourage people within the United States and elsewhere to look upon Marxism, communism, scientific socialism with increasing favor, then Du Bois was useful in that regard.
Another face in this frilly flock of Philadelphia physicians was perhaps the blackest of them all, Little Dick Warrick. The Warrick family, another prominent Negro family in Philadelphia, whose roots were also tied to the abolitionist movement and the creation of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. As a result of their relationships and roles in abolitionist reformation, which included the Christianizing of blacks through the Methodist Church, this small Negro contingent out of Philadelphia was considered the Black American aristocracy. After the group's establishment in 1904, the Boulé later expanded into Chicago in 1907 and Baltimore the following year in 1910, expanding south to Memphis and later into cities like St. Louis, Kansas City, Detroit, and Atlanta. Being considered for selection into Sigma Pi Phi was contingent first upon education and then excellence in one's field. But probably the most important qualification was legacy. For 2 decades, the Boulé aggressively recruited all of the most prominent black families and professionals across the country for membership, hoping by which they could establish a black hierarchy. Over time, the membership became less of an excellence-based requirement and more of a legacy-based, which caused concerns that the standards for membership of inherited status wouldn't retain the quality of its founders, whom were considered by the elite as the most excellent of men. Yet, to be fair, all of the founding members of the Boulé had also inherited legacy status through societies founded prior to the Boulé, such as the Ugly Club in New York and the Free African Society in Philadelphia. The Negroes of the Northeast sought to separate themselves from the so-called lower-class Negroes, and the Methodist Church would make over the paupers of the plantation into the princes of the pulpit. 2 of these princes of the pew were Richard Allen, founder of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, and Absalom Jones. Both of these men were born into slavery and Christianized by their Methodist overseers for the purposes of evangelizing slaves. In 1787, these men found the Free African Society, which at its inception was a religious institution which led to the establishment of the first independent black church in America. Allen was born a slave on the plantation of prominent Philadelphia politician and Supreme Court Judge Benjamin Chew, who also had been a close personal friend of George Washington. Richard Allen was eventually sold to Stokely Sturgis, a white Methodist abolitionist. And while under the thumb of Sturgis, Richard Allen became a Methodist and began spreading gospel to the enslaved blacks. Eventually, Allen became a preacher at St. George's Episcopal in Philadelphia, a predominantly white church. But his services were restricted to sunrise sermons. This was around the time he and Absalom Jones founded the Free African Society, although he nor Jones were born free or African. At the root of their Christianization was slavery, and at the root of their slavery were men teaching them religion. But what was at the root of the men teaching them religion? Christianity wasn't inherently African, so why were these men amalgamating European philosophy with African identity? Did these men have any credible historical foundation for such claim? Both men born slaves in Delaware and taught their history and religion by whom? Expectation should one have for Negroes who were indoctrinated by their oppressors to the point of claiming false identity to justifiably found something considered independent and black? Bourgeoisie of Philadelphia were a product of abolitionist Christian propaganda, whose purpose is to keep the black masses in a state of perpetual confusion and ignorance. What better way than teaching Christianity to house niggas, and then having some of those house niggas propagate the black masses with futile race rhetoric from docile, dainty Negroes who despise their own people? The mindfuckery is extremely well calculated. Create a class of uppity conformist Negroes and use your resources to champion these individuals as the brightest and best. Another one of the illustrious Philly Negroes was a man by the name of James Forten, who was actually born free and became one of, if not the most influential of all the Negroes in Philadelphia. James Forten had served in the Navy as a privateer during the Revolutionary War. He was taken prisoner by the British Royal Navy during his stint, but was later released after being imprisoned for 9 months. He returned to Philadelphia and apprenticed as a ship sailmaker in a business previously worked by his deceased father, who had died on the job under business owner Robert Bridges. After the retirement of Bridges, Forten, who had become a foreman and Bridges' best employee, took a loan and purchased the business in 1798. In 1810, Forten invented a tool used to maneuver large cells, therefore making them easier to cut and sew. As a result, his business prospered, and soon James Forten's business made him one of the wealthiest men in Philadelphia, regardless of race. In the late 1700s and early 1800s, many abolitionists and slave masters bounded together for a single master plan to solve the black problem in American society. This began the first so-called Back to Africa movement, in which black Americans, some formerly enslaved, would move to West Africa in countries like Liberia and Sierra Leone in order to colonize these lands free of racial discrimination. This idea, proposed by the American Colonization Society, an organization supported by notorious slave owners like Kentucky's Henry Clay, was outright rejected by black Americans, who claimed they had been American and had no African association.
Quote, from The Problem of Slavery in the Age of Emancipation. Forten had supported Paul Cuffey, a Boston shipbuilder who in 1815 transported 38 free blacks to Sierra Leone with the idea they could make a better life where not impeded by white racism. He was well aware of continuing problems due to harsh discrimination against blacks in the United States. To address community concerns and discuss potential for colonization, James Forten worked with Bishop Richard Allen of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, the first independent black denomination in the United States, Absalom Jones and James Goulchester, to organize a meeting on this topic in Philadelphia. Their announced meeting in January 1817 at Bethel AME Church drew 3,000 attendees from Philadelphia. Hearing the strong views of this public forced a dramatic turning point for these leaders. By this time, most free blacks and slaves had been born in the United States and claimed it as their own, with their own families. At the meeting, Fortin called for a vote asking who favored colonization. Not one man said yes. When he asked who was against it, the crowd resounded with a no that made the hall ring. All claimed the U.S. as their own and wanted to gain their full civil rights as citizens. After that meeting, Fortin and the ministers strongly opposed the ACS, and Fortin later converted William Lloyd Garrison, a younger white abolitionist from Boston, against the colonization schemes. Following the January meeting, Fortin helped draft a resolution of the sense of the public, which he and other leaders sent to the Pennsylvania congressional delegation. In August, they published a longer address to the inhabitants of the city and county of Philadelphia, which attacked colonization, end quote. Perhaps James Fortin was the most influential black in the entire country, and he adamantly opposed relocating to Africa, as did many of his countrymen. Fortin had not been born a slave and did not inherit his status. He was a self-made man, to the utmost respect of his peers, which he earned by representing them to the opposition of their white so-called friends. Abolitionists and Quakers, along with Methodists, held themselves as the liberators of blacks in America. Among their objectives, concocting a scheme to displace black Americans from their home. It must be noted that the black population in America was significant prior to colonialism. The majority of the enslaved population were captured indigenous prisoners of war, whom had their land forcibly taken by pre-colonial European powers, predominantly the French in Canada and in Middle America, the Spanish in the South and the West, and the British in the East. The Virginia Slave Act imposed the right of Christian authority over anyone captured and held in bondage. Quote from the Virginia Slave Act, Henning's Statutes at Large, Volume 2, page 491. Jumping ahead to the middle. Whereas also those Indians that are taken in war or otherwise by our neighboring Indians, confederates or tributaries to his majesty, and this his plantation of Virginia, are slaves to the said neighboring Indians that so take them, and by them are likewise sold to his majesty's subjects here as slaves. Be it therefore enacted by the governor council and the burgesses of this General Assembly, and it is enacted by the authority aforesaid, that all the said recited act of the 3rd of October 1670 be, and is hereby repealed and made utterly void to all intents and purposes whatsoever. And it be further enacted by the authority aforesaid, that all servants except Turks and Moors, whilst in amity with his majesty, which from and after publication of this act shall be brought or imported into this country, either by sea or land, whether Negroes, Moors, mulattoes, or Indians, who in whose parentage and native country are not Christian at the time of their first purchase of such servant by some Christian, although afterwards And before such their importation and bringing into this country, they shall be converted to the Christian faith. And all Indians, which shall hereafter be sold to our neighboring Indians, or any other trafficking with us as for slaves, are hereby adjudged, deemed, and taken, and shall be adjudged, deemed, and taken to be slaves to all intents and purposes, any law, usage, or custom to the contrary notwithstanding. End quote. From Henning's Statutes at Large, Volume 2, page 491, 1670, Virginia Slave Act. The first so-called African-American leaders in American history were essentially Christian and Zionist installed puppets, many of them having immigrant backgrounds. These people were used as instruments to mold the black narrative of American history and even black history in general. Indoctrinated by Christian abolitionists under the guise of anti-slavery, when their true motives were to use these token blacks to propagate Christianity and Pan-Africanism. No less noteworthy are the intellectual black families of the South, similar to the Warwicks, who moved north during Reconstruction in hopes to obtain prominence within the northern black aristocracy. Prestigious black landowners and businessmen from the South often enrolled their children in northern elite educational institutions such as Harvard and other Ivy League schools. The completion of their degrees held an unequal quality of comparison and guaranteed their position in the social caste system. The education, or rather indoctrination disparity between blacks during Reconstruction fostered the Hegelian dispute at the heart of the philosophy for black progressiveness. Two opposing schools of thought were at play. Social liberalism, a philosophy championed by the so-called talented Kemp and the Boulay, and self-actualization, a philosophy championed by Booker T. Washington and Marcus Garvey. Each of these men gaining power and influence through their relationships with wealthy white men. This would introduce the three-headed monster of the black Hegelian deception: integration, segregation, or separation. On the next episode of Boulay, we will investigate the philosophies of Marcus Garvey and Booker T. Washington, and their opposition to W.E.B. Du Bois. We will also learn more about the roots of Sigma Pi Phi and their connection to black fraternities and Freemasonry. Look. Would you come and look at this shit right here? This nigga looked like the Black Planet. The older this nigga got, the more Russian this nigga looked. The nigga was definitely a communist. Face ass nigga. He look like the black bloody Lenin. He look like the black bloody Lenin. He look like the black bloody Lenin. He look like a double like a bloody Lenin. All right, I'm done.
Nature is lawful. As far as we can tell, the universe and all that it is made of changes from moment to moment according to fixed, unchangeable, immutable patterns. And those patterns, as attested to by a couple hundred years of observation and calculation, can be expressed
Is Viviro produced with slave labor?
When Yara becomes paradise, my methods, no one will care.
I too am a king who isn't afraid to slaughter to get what he wants.
Is this a test? A dream? An opportunity? Then I will not waste it. Beyond salvation. Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity?
Resolver weapons, of course, are the, like, you know, improvised, really heavy-hitting weapons that the rebels put together. That one in particular is like a sniper meets a sticky explosive launcher, and I mean, it's
well, that's
just
the
so
beauty
good.
with the team that put those together is such a great job of allowing you to see the individual pieces that are scrounged together from everyday life, thrown together to make a weapon. You know, my favorite is the, and it's a few people's favorite, I think, is the El Pequeño, which is essentially a motorcycle engine strapped to a turbo that turns into a Gatling gun. Oh, look at this.
That thing revs up, and it's like, it gets pretty hard to control, but man, does it mow them down. It is so good.
Yeah.
We will see a couple more Resolver weapons throughout the course of this stream, folks, so stay tuned. We're wrapping up the FND base here. But I also noticed, you know, Far Cry is a series that... Oh man. So, okay.
The Medico backpack?
Yeah, so this is the Supremo backpack. This is the, I forget what it's called, but basically it sends... you can see the health bar is now yellow. I've got a whole extra pool of health. And it allows me to do machete takedowns on anybody. This one's particularly nasty, because you go for the knees first. Like,
that's just so unnecessary. It's like, let me put you in excruciating pain before I end your life.
There's a special irony that you just used the Medico backpack and then brutally attacked several soldiers right after.
You know, this, you don't win a revolution by breaking a few eggs, I believe is how the saying goes.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair.
So now we're going to jump a little bit to another section of gameplay, and this is where we're going to meet one of the revolutionary groups you get entangled with here in Far Cry 6, La Morale. Naveed, can you give us the breakdown on who La Morale is?
Yeah, one of the interesting things we tried to do in LS Day is have this sort of clash of two different groups, two different revolutionary groups. So one is the Legends of 67, these are sort of the old revolutionaries in the mountains. And then you have La Morale, which is a group of university students that have banded together to fight back, and they are very, very militant and have some of my favorite characters in the game. And it's one of the things too that, like, you look at these revolutions often as one big group, but in Far Cry 6 we wanted to show that it's actually a lot of different groups fighting for control. So
yeah, and this guy Calixto is about to give us a little bit of an anecdote about La Morale's operating methods. So the story he's in the middle of here is that the Admiral executed half this town for protesting. track them down.
Yeah, and the thing with La Morale is that, they're led by Yelena, who's, they're all university students, and her second in command, Alderon, who hopefully we get to meet soon as well. But their methods are, let's just say, much more brutal than the Legends, and even Libertad. They don't care about Clara Garcia or Libertad or even you. They have their own agenda.
They absolutely do, yeah. Honron especially is an absolute firecracker.
Yeah.
I got to meet her a little bit when I was playing earlier, but I wanted to show off this mission because this is like, you are basically trying to make good with La Morale after a little supply disagreement, and you're going in to rescue some captives, and of course the rescue is happening out on this boat. Ooh. Yeah. Now y'all know how we're getting down to this boat.
Yeah. Can you guess how you're gonna get to the boat? That's the question.
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
If I've learned anything about Chris Waters from streaming with him for 2 years now, it's that this man loves a wingsuit.
Oh, I'm with you, Chris. There's two things in Far Cry 6 that I need immediately: is the wingsuit and a horse.
And look at this landing! Look at this landing!
That's it.
This is like my proudest moment in this whole gameplay.
That is well done.
That was very well done.
Well done.
Also, we got some folks in the chat pointing out that there was a Canadian flag flying over this vessel. Naveed.
I thought I saw that.
I wonder why. Mr. McKay is in fact Canadian. Yeah, he's a Canadian import-exporter, and he may or may not talk about certain Timbits.
Oh man, we get a Timbits reference.
Yeah. So this is another look at that Supremo backpack. Now these are these things you wear on your back that you charge up and can unleash devastating kind of ability or something to really help support. And this one is the Speedy Extra Health Machete Takedowns, which you just saw on display.
Also, you swapped it, but the El Sussurro, the nail gun, which is just perfect for stealth. There's a period, I think, in the project where everyone is just using El Sussurro. There's like a 2-week period where it's like, what are you using El Sussurro? And I was thinking about it before. It's like, during the development of these things, you because different weapons are coming online at different points, you kind of find your weapon and then you stick with it. It becomes sort of like Old Faithful.
Oh yeah, and
you got some people trapped down there.
Yeah, it's the most unnecessary rappel down there, but I didn't really know what I was getting into. You gotta be safe here.
Safety
Chris,
first.
some people play Far Cry incredibly stealthy. No one sees them coming. No one, they don't make a sound. You just get rid of all the enemies on the entire boat without making a peep. Not you, not Chris Waters. And you know what? I appreciate that about you.
There's a lot of ways to play. That's what we appreciate here.
My number one method is to attempt stealth for a solid 15 minutes, get bored, and then go fully loud with my Fuego backpack and just torch everything in sight.
The Fuego backpack, we're going to actually see that in a little bit. A lot of flames, folks.
A lot of flames. Not the safest backpack. Safety is a big theme of this live stream. I think it's not exactly safe.
Oh yes. Whenever you're overthrowing a dictatorship, you always got to be safe. That's the rule number one.
Chris, do you feel like we're judging your gameplay right now, your play style? Or
that's live streaming, baby. I mean, even though this is great.
Ooh, that was nice.
That was perfect. Look at this.
See, the kid's got some chops. But no, folks, if you watch Ubisoft News Plays, you know that we're all about having fun with the game. Like, sometimes we got the plays, other times, hey, it's a little rough and ready, but we stay positive, we have a good old time, and
that's the Persian side of me. I gotta make sure you're both okay, like everything's fine. Did you need a snack?
I like the lightning in this storm was like very timed at there were certain moments where it was just like incredibly atmospheric, just the timing in the background. It was very fun.
Aleste has some of my favorite sort of set piece missions where you just feel like it's epic and you're going hard, and yeah, this is one of many. And this is one of the ships as well, you know, the sort of Navy theme is throughout. They're preventing anyone from escaping Yara, while at the same time funneling in all the Viviro in and out as you shoot down a plane and engulf yourself in flames.
You know, look. Yes, that's exactly what you can look forward to, folks. When Far Cry 6 comes out on October 7th. We had some folks asking about Chorizo in chat. Don't you worry, we get a lot of amigos coming up. We've got Chorizo, we've got Guapo, we've got Chicharron. Stay tuned. They're coming your way.
You're waiting an extremely long time to not use Chorizo.
Well, here's the thing. I have not recruited Chorizo at this point in the game, so we're going to go and we're going to recruit Chorizo. We're going to meet this absolute tyrant of a rooster.
Chorizo, like, I don't think I was prepared for how much of a chip on its shoulder Chorizo has. Like,
oh, you mean Chicharron?
Yeah, the
Chicharron. Sorry, Chicharron. Excuse me.
Chorizo has no chip. Chorizo you just want to hug and raise for yourself.
Chorizo's all vibes. Chicharron though is just angry. He's pissed off and ready to cause havoc.
Oh yeah.
Chicharron is everyone at 18. I think that's how I see Chicharron. At 18, you just hit a point. Yeah.
Folks, as we're dealing with a ton of bombardment and chaos here aboard this boat, feel free to throw a question or two into the Ubisoft chat or into the Xbox chat. We're taking a look over there. I've been seeing y'all chatting there.
Jump in.
And so let me know if you want to know something. How old is this pre-recorded footage, Samcraft? I recorded this footage last week at the end of the week. Due to some technical limitations, we had to do it this way, just based on the fact of like keeping everything secure in a pre-release environment. But also, this allows us to like give you the highlights here and there and show a diversity of areas, of weapons, and everything like that. So that's why we wanted to tune it this way for this stream for you. My ride is here.
We got James Bond exit here.
Eliahu over in the Xbox chat asking, how is co-op in the game? Is it possible to play through the whole game in co-op, just like Far Cry 5?
It is absolutely possible to play the entire game in co-op. Happy to report that. It's an absolute blast playing Far Cry in co-op. And you will, there's the host and then the co-op player. The host keeps the sort of campaign progression, but you keep your player progression, so all your weapons and all of that stuff as well. So it's pretty ready to go.
The resources you gather, like, we'll see a little bit of weapon customization in just a little bit, folks, but the resources you gather really go a long way towards tuning those weapons, towards making them, a lot more versatile and impactful.
Oh god! You need those Resolver materials, and you want to get some Resolver weapons going.
Some people are asking as well about crossplay. Do you know if co-op crossplay is possible?
I believe it is. I'm not going to say 100% because someone might throw something at me, but I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah.
Let me investigate. We'll follow up. Try and give you all a definitive answer on that one.
This ally just happened to get injured through no fault of my own exactly. It's dark.
It's not your
the
fault
sun
at
is
all.
setting. But look, I revived him. We get a slow-mo explosion of the boat. It's
a good light as well. Yes.
Oh yeah. I really like that effect, the slow-down effect, like when the mission is completed. Like it's just
It's the walk away from explosion so slowly effect. Yeah. It's very satisfying.
And the moon, stars.
Yeah, see now you're pissing off Benitez at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's some open world mechanics we're gonna see a little later as well that are like you start to cause a lot of trouble. Trouble's gonna find you in addition to you seeking it out.
You gotta be careful. And that's one thing, we talk a lot with our designers and our world director, Ben Hall, we always wanted that feeling of the world pushing back, you know, so it's not just like you're going about and the world doesn't exist around you. And yeah, if you start messing with it, Anton will send his special forces. Oh, Chicharron.
Oh, here we go.
Chicharron. Oh, man.
I really like this guy. He's like Chicharron's
hype man.
Yeah, hype man. Yeah, that's a good one.
Even though he's lost an arm to Chicharron.
Literally, Chicharron ripped off his arm.
Yeah.
Shout out to JB in chat that says, "Damn, that rooster had drip."
Oh yeah, you can see that. You can see Chicharron both show.
Yes, he just the way he says Chicharron. There's like the longest period where people were just yelling that on the floor. It's like a battle cry. There it is. See? It's perfect. Oof.
Chicharron will make them regret not going paperless.
Yeah.
Not going paperless.
Not going paperless, right? Right?
Chicharron, first and foremost, is an environmentalist.
Very environmentally conscious in Far Cry 6.
I really like that kind of mission briefing because you get so much character from the mission giver,
yeah.
and it really like helps paint this picture of who this maniacal rooster is.
And what's different this go around is you get a lot the sort of mission briefings you get. We get a lot closer, you know, with the characters. So you get to see all the little details in their face and their clothes and their gear and all that. Oh, what are you gonna pick, Chris? Ooh.
Well, so we're still pretty early on here, so I don't have a ton of weapons unlocked. So just mixing it up.
You want to know the hardest thing with game dev is
tell me.
You know you actually play the game as you should play it, and you can't just use cheats. So like every time I play a game once it's released, like my hand is flying all over the controller and everything's. I'm like, what is going on? Where are all my cheats, man?
Where's my stuff?
Where's my stuff?
We had a question here. Who was just saying this about can you hide the mini map? Yeah, there's a ton of like HUD customization stuff you can do.
Tons.
So you can. Yeah, that's something that I wanted to leave it on just so y'all could see how it goes. But you tune in about a month to our live streams once this game comes out. We'll play around with the HUD. We'll see what we can do.
Sure.
You want to take off the mini map, the health bars. You can do all that.
Now getting a look at
I'm the exact opposite.
Oh, you
I want it all on. I want everything on.
Get a look at some of the arsenal here. You've got your Supremo backpack in the main slot, 3 primary weapons in a sidearm, and then 5 gear pieces. And there's a lot of different ways to like customize the whole operation. Plus your look, because with your cosmetic gear, or sorry, with what you're wearing, you can do like a cosmetic customization and swap out the look and keep the stats, which I know Yusuf, you were still.
And that's a shift. Is your progression is tied a lot to your gear, which gives you a lot more freedom in terms of your play style. I think folks are going to appreciate.
And one of the things I noticed about the gear was that some of the stuff I was like, I was kind of expecting it to, as it does, sort of amplify certain resistances and powers. But one of the gloves was like, when you catch on fire, the fire will be put out because of these gloves. And there were some shoes that were like, you resist getting knocked over by melee attacks. And I was like, put these on. I need those.
Yeah, and whether it's weapons or gear, if you wear a certain vest that'll repel, the poison that the army throws you. Like, so you're kind of problem solving depending on the situation. Look at this. Chicharron waits for nobody.
Speaking of problem solving,
just starting things.
That's what we wanted to get across with Chicharron, is you don't know if you're fighting with him or he's fighting with you. You don't know what he's fighting, but there's fighting.
Our mission here is to protect Chicharron. I don't feel like Chicharron needs any protection.
No, not really. I think the rest of the world needs protection from Chicharron.
Yeah. Oh God, what is this weapon, Chris?
Oh, this? I feel like this is just a tease because we're actually going inside. The fireworks. Wait, am I going to use the fireworks? I was worried
It
about
would've been overkill,
Chicharron.
maybe.
I don't want to kill Chicharron.
Gotta be
But
careful.
you'll see some fireworks later. Don't worry. That's like Chekhov's fireworks launcher. We'll see some in Act 3. Now, speaking of
Chicharron, the normal.
you mentioned the fire earlier, being a favorite, and I wanted to shout it out because that's where it is.
I love that
Where's
you
all the
saved it for the document on the library, basically, to unload.
Absolutely.
So Far Cry.
Look, Chicharron hates these documents, and I'm trying to help out my little buddy here.
That's it. Chicharron knows what to do. Man, the
Let's hear
moment we
animation
saw.
sometimes.
I think the turning point with Chicharron was when he got the collar. Once he got the punk rock collar, everything sort of fell into place.
I'm thinking those like neon spurs or whatever. I don't know what you call them on a booster.
Yeah.
Those like the back like claw.
Yeah, the spurs. They're spurs. Yeah.
So folks asking in chat, I do have some clarification on co-op. So co-op is possible between generations of the same platform, so like Xbox One to Xbox Series X and S. It is not available across systems, so Xbox and PlayStation crossplay is not there. But cross-save and cross-progression is live for everyone. So if you own the game on multiple platforms, you have one save. Your save carries over from one to the next.
There you go. Two notes as we continue. We will see some more looks of Chicharron because you can customize you can get your amigos in different outfits. We're going to see a little bit of those later. Also, if you want to go back and pause the stream when we were just looking at that document, you can learn a little bit more about Yelena, the leader of La Moral that we were talking about earlier, that who Naveed was talking about. That was like a little dossier on her. And you can see exactly what kind of threat the army thinks she is. Now, Chicharron, in addition to having like a endless bloodlust and hatred for the Castillo soldiers, also like he's got an ego, man. He wants people to know that he's been here. So the way this is concluded,
I mean, he's the cock of the walk. He's a rooster. He's showing off.
Absolutely. So you gotta let folks know who was the one who trashed this building.
It's the music, right? That's what the music makes it. Perfect.
Look at him. Look how happy he is. Always happy to help you out,
It's
Chicharron.
nothing like an abruptly ended screaming guitar solo.
Now we have one more Chicharron mission before we can recruit him as an amigo, and we're gonna hop into that now. Before we do that, folks, just a quick note about the footage you're seeing. It's captured from an Xbox Series X. Pre-recorded so we could show you a bunch of different segments and edit them together. So we have chunk here, chunk there, chunk there. And of course, we're streaming it at 1080p, 60 frames a second, because that's sort of our optimal, how we want to stream to you. But of course, settings will exist for higher graphical fidelity and whatnot as your home setup permits.
Show them the meaning of strength. He will humiliate them. He will destroy the statue with his power.
One of the things I want to point out briefly, Naveed, that I'm a big fan of, and we talked a little bit about gear, outfitting your Danny with what you want them, what gear you want them to have and the stats that come along with it. But the thing I'm a really big fan, I'm really glad you all have this in at launch, is being able to customize the appearance of those gear items. So, folks, basically the way it works is if you have a piece of gear, you like the stats of the piece of gear, but maybe you don't like the look of it necessarily, you can swap out the appearance with another gear item of the same category that you already own, which I think
it's a massive roster.
It's a huge roster. There's so many things to choose from as you unlock them. But the thing that I think, the reason I'm so happy about this, Naveed, is that Far Cry 6 has third-person cutscenes for the first time. So you're seeing your Danny a lot more than you would normally see a Far Cry protagonist.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a big let's see if it works moment several years ago that thankfully paid off. But yeah, that was one of the reasons we wanted to do third-person cutscenes. Not only that you're sort of more invested.
Late better than never.
I love how angry at the mongoose he is, first of all.
It's not having it.
But yeah, it's one of those things where you get to be a bit more invested in Danny's story. or Danny, doing their thing and interacting with the characters. So it instantly worked when we tried it out. It was fantastic. Just he doesn't hold back, does he?
No. Oh no. Oh god.
It's also like, I'm not just taking out this dude.
That's it, right? Because he knows what's gonna happen. He knows.
So for folks who missed it, this mission right now.
Alright, I'm about to get up out of here. Yo. Y'all guys hold it down. I'll give it y'all next time. Peace.